Welcome to The Explainer. For centuries, the main idea of God in the West was, well, a king on a throne somewhere far away. But what if that whole picture is just wrong? What if the divine isn't out there at all, but is actually woven into the very fabric of reality itself? Today, we're going to trace this incredible intellectual journey, a story driven by science and philosophy that is completely reshaping how we think about the cosmos and maybe even our own place within it.
So, here's our roadmap for today. We're going to start by looking at how that old portrait of God began to fade. Then we'll dive into the scientific breakthroughs that really changed the game. After that, we'll uncover a deep philosophical crack that literally split reality in two and explore some wild new ideas that are trying to heal it. And finally, we'll end up with two very different competing paths to the divine that really define the modern search for meaning.
All right, let's get into it. To really wrap our heads around the new ideas, we first have to understand the old one. For the longest time, the concept of God felt pretty fixed, right? But as we're about to see, it's been quietly evolving this whole time, moving away from a distant monarch in the sky to something much more intimate, a presence woven right through the cosmos.
And you can see that whole journey right here. It all starts with classical theism. God as a supernatural being, totally separate from the universe, who acts like a hands-on manager, performing miracles, intervening in our lives. But then, as science starts revealing a universe of precise, predictable laws, the idea shifts. It moves to deism. Here, God is this perfect watchmaker who designs and builds this incredibly intricate clockwork universe, winds it up, and then just lets it run. No more interference. The final step is even more radical, moving into pantheism and pantheism. This is where God isn't the creator of the world, but is the creative energy and consciousness within the world. The divine is no longer outside of everything, it's inside of everything. So what on earth caused such a massive shift? What could possibly be powerful enough to move God from the heavens right into the fabric of the universe itself? Well, the answer is a series of scientific earthquakes, massive tremors that completely shook the very foundations of belief. Let's take a look at the three biggest ones.
Yeah, each one of these discoveries was a major blow to that old model. First up, you have Newton's physics. It suggested a clockwork universe that just ran so perfectly on its own mathematical laws, it didn't really seem to need a divine operator constantly pulling the levers. Then, along comes Darwin. His theory of evolution explained the breathtaking complexity of life without needing a divine designer, getting rid of that god of the gaps that people used to explain anything mysterious. And just when it seemed like science was painting this picture of a purely mechanical, godless universe, quantum mechanics shows up, and it just shatters that mechanical picture, revealing a deeply interconnected, weird, probabilistic reality that was stranger and more mysterious than anyone could have ever imagined.
But the challenge wasn't just coming from the science labs. A deep philosophical crack was forming in how we even think about reality. A split that, some people argue, we are still trying to heal to this day.
It's called the Cartesian bifurcation, and it gets its name from the philosopher René Descartes. The best way to think about it is like a great wall built right through the middle of reality. On one side, he put matter, the physical, measurable, quote-unquote, objective world that science can study. And on the other side of that wall, he put mind, our inner, subjective world of thoughts, feelings, consciousness, and purpose. Two totally separate realms.
And right here, you can see the profound consequence of that split. Look at this. Everything that makes life feel meaningful, consciousness, values, beauty, purpose, it all gets siloed away into that mind category. It's effectively removed from the real world. Meanwhile, the physical universe, the world of matter, is left with only the cold, hard facts, quantities, locations, and motion. And the result? A physical world that is efficiently stripped of all inherent meaning, beauty, and value. It becomes a cold, sterile, and ultimately pointless machine.
The philosopher Alfred North Whitehead captured this bleak picture just perfectly with this haunting quote. "This is the universe that Great Split leaves us with, fundamentally empty, lifeless, and devoid of the very qualities we actually experience every single moment." And think about what that means. In this view, the vibrant color of a sunset, the beautiful sound of music, the very meaning of love, none of it is a real part of the world. Nope, they're just illusions cooked up inside our skulls, completely separate from reality.
So, how do we heal this split? Well, modern thinkers are proposing some truly radical new visions of a unified cosmos, aiming to weave mind and matter back together. And what's fascinating is that many are finding inspiration not in some ancient text, but in the bizarre and beautiful world of quantum physics. Our first stop is quantum field theory, or QFT, which is our most successful description of the fundamental nature of reality. And what it tells us is that the universe isn't built from tiny separate particles, like little billiard balls bouncing around, no. Instead, the most fundamental things are these continuous, interconnected fields that permeate all of space and all of time.
And this is where things get really, really interesting. The language of modern physics starts to sound uncannily like the language of ancient mystics. I mean, if particles are just ripples on some deeper unified field, that sounds a lot like the spiritual idea that all of reality is one indivisible whole. The quantum vacuum isn't just empty space, it's a fertile void, constantly bubbling with creation, a concept you hear echoed in so many creation myths. And phenomena like entanglement, while they prove a deep, instantaneous connection that defies our normal sense of separation. So from this perspective, God could be seen not as a person, but as the sum total of all these fundamental fields, the unified ground from which all reality emerges.
The physicist and philosopher David Bohm took these quantum insights and went even further. He proposed this breathtaking idea that the reality we perceive every single day is just a projection. It's a surface appearance of a much deeper, more fundamental level of existence.
Bohm called this the hollow movement. Now, to get a feel for it, think of a hologram, where the entire three-dimensional image is encoded in every tiny little part of the film. He argued reality works just like that. The world of separate things we see, tables, trees, stars, that's the explicate order. It's the unfolded, projected image. But underneath all of that lies the implicate order, a deeper reality where everything is enfolded together in a seamless, interconnected whole. In this view, God isn't some static creator who finished his work a long time ago. God is the continuous, dynamic process of this unfolding, the infinite, unmanifest ground from which our reality is emerging moment by moment.
Okay, but what if we've had it backwards this whole time? What if matter doesn't create mind, but mind creates matter? That is the truly radical proposal of a modern philosophy called analytical idealism, championed by the thinker Bernardo Kastrup.
This idea just flips everything on its head. It claims that consciousness isn't some random fluke of brain chemistry, it is the fundamental stuff of the universe. There's just one universal consciousness, a mind at large. So what are we? What are our individual minds? Well, we're like whirlpools in a single vast ocean of awareness. We look temporarily distinct, but we're ultimately made of the exact same water. In the physical world we see, that's simply the image of this whole process. It's what consciousness looks like from the outside. In this model, God is that universal mind. And spirituality, that just becomes the act of realizing our true nature isn't the separate little whirlpool, but the entire ocean.
So, after this incredible journey, from a clockwork universe all the way to a universal mind, where does that leave us? Well, once we reject that old painful split between mind and matter, two major and profoundly different paths forward seem to emerge for how we can understand the divine.
And this table here really highlights the fundamental choice, embodied by two key thinkers. On one path, with a philosopher like Alfred North Whitehead, you get a process God. This is a God that isn't outside of time but is actually evolving with the cosmos. This divine being isn't some distant, perfect king, but an intimate co-creator, a fellow sufferer who understands our struggles and our joys because it experiences them right along with us. But on the other path, with a thinker like Wolfgang Smith, you have a more traditional view, though it's a highly sophisticated one. God as the timeless, perfect, and unchanging ground of all being, subsistent being itself. This God isn't a participant in the universe's drama. It's the absolute, impassible foundation on which the entire universe depends for its very existence.
And really, this is the profound question the modern search for meaning leaves us with. After moving past the old monarch on the throne and wrestling with the deepest mysteries of science, we're faced with a choice. Is the ultimate reality a fellow traveler, a dynamic partner evolving alongside us in this grand cosmic journey? Or is it the silent, timeless ground of all being, the unchanging foundation that makes our fleeting, miraculous existence possible in the first place? That is the question we are all left to answer. The search continues.